Welcome back to Overtime here on WOTM. We talked about our former Brave and Fred McGriff in our last segment. Let's now talk about the current Braves baseball team. It's a team that's been on a roller coaster ride for the majority of the year, finding themselves kind of in the middle of a very, very important stretch. You don't want to make too many baseball games before the All-Star break, super important, but I think given the division race that they're in right now, with the Mets right now, I think that it's interesting because they played a few games against them beforehand, played against the Red Sox, also played against the Cardinals, now back again against the Mets. Mets take game one in their first game of the three-game series. What have you seen so far from this squad?
Well, I thought last night's game was probably the most disturbed I would be as a Braves fan because they get a 3-0 lead. Morton is pitching lights out, and they're unable to hold it against a Met lineup that had really struggled.
Right.
Now, Morton himself was really dominating the Mets at the point where they came back, so you expected that to continue, and you didn't think their bullpen was going to blow it against a group of players that shouldn't really beat you. You take a 3-0 lead into the seventh inning against this Mets team if you're the Braves, and you should put the game away.
Right.
So this was the first night I really watched this team play and thought maybe there's something a little off because the Mets normally don't beat them the way they did last night,
right,
where they show grit and they come back. And I think just the ability to where they were down early and late in the game, one of their unknown guys, you can see McGann here, the thing that really made me think like it's not going to happen, how bad he looked on that pitch.
Yeah.
I mean, that was comical. That ball is in a left-handed batter's box, and I'm thinking the Mets are just giving up. Because Pilar, the guy before that, didn't even question a call strike three, just walked right back. Look at that. That's at least, 48 feet?
Right.
All right. So Albies then hits the 3-run homer. They're winning 3-0. You think the Mets are done. Lander's going to easily win game one of this series and then kind of take back the National League East, even though Washington's playing really well.
Really good baseball,
they've taken over second place, and you still got Philly. But I think ultimately it'll come down to the Braves and the Mets. And then McGann, next time up, hits a 3-run homer to tie the game. The Mets are able to take the lead later in the inning to win 4-3. And then the Braves didn't come back. They didn't come back against the Mets bullpen that can be had.
Right.
I mean, these aren't, the 96 Yankees here, okay? We're not seeing, Wetland and Mariano Rivera coming out of the bullpen who the Braves should know about. So I think that losing that game last night would have, to me, started to bother me. If I was a Braves fan that expected them to win this division, that would have bothered me. However, today you see the Braves with an 11-2 lead against Peterson, a guy they really hit well. So they've been able to recover from this, but the way Atlanta's been hitting the Mets this year has really been disturbing if I'm a Braves fan because they have not made much contact against them at all. You can see they're 3-6 the first 9 games this year. They're being outscored by 16 runs. They only have a 178 batting average overall. With runners in scoring position, that takes out, they were 5 for 10 in one game.
Right.
Because that was the statistical anomaly compared to all the other games. 179 runners in scoring position. I believe it was wound up being 7 for 39 overall with runners in scoring position. 9 home runs, but the other big thing is strikeouts to walks, 89 to 32, and you have the best batters in the Braves lineup not making contact.
Exactly.
And when they're not making contact, because I showed you that analytic thing where they make the best solid contact of any team. So if they're not making that contact against the Mets, that's a little different than the things that have led to their offensive success for most of the season.
Exactly, and you talked about some of their better batters going into this. We'll talk about Acuna, Dansby Swanson, as well as Ozzie Albies and William Contreras. And you take a look at their numbers against this specific Mets team. I know DeGrom is unbelievable, and I know the pitching staff is good, but some of this is abysmal compared to what they normally do, especially at the top there with Acuna.
Yeah, I mean, Freddie Freeman's still hitting 286, so if Freddie Freeman was hitting 180, then I would think this is not normal.
Right.
But Acuna has been a guy who's over 300 hitter against the Mets coming into this year. Same with Albies. So those guys you expect to do, but they're not even making contact. And again, you don't have Noah Syndergaard out there. You don't have Carlos Carrasco out there. Taijuan Walker's good, but he's not an elite pitcher, even though he's getting better. And DeGrom is who he is. Look, I mean, the guy's probably the best pitcher in baseball. But it's not like the Mets have guys that are going to come out and win Cy Young Awards out there that are shutting them down.
Yeah.
You saw last night Tyler McGill. He's a minor leaguer. So you don't expect the Braves to strike out like 9-10 times they did in the first 5 innings last night, especially Acuna, Swanson, Albies. Though he hit the 3-run homer, 11 Ks, 13 for Swanson. I think he's 5 for 33. Acuna's 5 for 30. Contreras 1 for 20. A guy who needs to hit.
Right.
I mean, with Darno out and Jackson out, Contreras is a young guy they're depending on. He's had some good games, but he's been very inconsistent, and lately he hasn't really hit at all. So 1 for 29 Ks. These guys, the way they're not making contact when you're hitting 178, that really stands out to me.
And I know that the strikeouts are a number right now that baseball metrics say that is up. However, I think this is almost embarrassing. I mean, it's not like you're hitting into double plays or you're warning track power. The number of strikeouts so early into this season between these two teams, like you said, 9 games going into it as far as the numbers that we're breaking down here. I think it's a really, really concerning thing for the Braves offense going against, as you said, not a pitching staff that will blow you away night to night. Meanwhile, we talked earlier about Charlie Morton. We'll look at his numbers. First 19 innings in his and then also in the 7th inning for yesterday. You talked about him having just a dynamic performance in yesterday's matchup, and not able to get the win there are the Braves. So it seems like when some pitchers are doing well, they can't get the run supports behind them, and it looks like he's kind of in the same boat.
But Morton, you got a 3-0 lead, so
That's right.
you got to hold that. You got to get through that 7th inning, and when he didn't, I thought maybe this is going to be a problem, and it was.
Yeah.
And the first 3 guys got on base. First 3 guys got on base in the 7th inning, and that led to the Mets coming back. 6 for 59. The previous 19 innings, 2 walks, 1 earned run. Just in the 7th inning, 2 for 2, 1 walk, and 3 earned runs. And that kind of ruined a night where Morton was dominating. You saw that one pitch to McGammy. Morton really has looked good this year overall. He's really starting to round out. But you got to be able to finish that game last night. Now, they're made up for today because they're really letting the Mets have it today. And maybe they learned from this last night because it seems like they're making a little more contact today. And we'll see how that goes. But if they don't start making contact more, if they don't start with the batting average balls in play, like they've been doing overall, I think overall they've been okay at it, but against the Mets they haven't been.
Exactly. And we'll go over to another guy that's in the division. We talked about enough about bad baseball. Let's talk some good baseball here. Kyle Schwarber has been absolutely killing it as of late. A guy, we've talked a lot of Braves in this segment, but here's a guy that, I mean, he's putting up unreal numbers, hitting more home runs in this last little stretch than some teams have hit here recently.
Oh, ridiculous. And this is a guy I thought the Braves would maybe think of having as a stopgap.
I remember saying this a few weeks ago.
Yeah, and I'm thinking, okay, well, Schwarber's a guy that's injury prone and he doesn't really have a position. He's not really an outfielder. He really came upon the scene with the Cubs back in like 2015, 2016 because of his power numbers. But Montreal, I'm calling him. Washington now is back into the race. They've jumped up to 2nd place. And he's the reason why. Not a reason, the reason.
Exactly.
Okay? Before June 12th, you see the numbers for him. 218, 20 runs, 9 homers, 26 RBIs. That was when he was batting 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th. They moved him to leadoff on June 12th. 18 games, now 19. They won again today. 348, 20 runs, 16 homers in 18 games. Are you kidding me?
Insane. 27 RBI. And you mentioned the fact that Washington is back in it, it's because of him.
It's because of him.
He's been their offense as of late. And as you mentioned, he doesn't really have a set role defensively. I know he can play a little bit of first. He can play out in the outfield.
You hope they don't hit him the ball. That's his role.
Exactly. And you just hope he doesn't give up a bunch of runs. When you're putting up numbers like this, he's not a liability on the defensive end. And I think it's unreal. So as much as we talk about the Braves and kind of their lack of offense, especially in this particular series against the Mets, this is a guy, as you said, you made mention of it, that Schwarber could be a guy that if the Braves wanted to be buyers before the end of the All-Star break, this could be a guy that they could have gone after.
They could have a couple weeks ago. They would have made out pretty well, though.
Exactly. But it looks like the Nationals, given their run, might want to keep the big fella in their clubhouse as of right now. Schwarber putting up some unreal numbers. Well, coming up next here on Overtime, we'll go back to the playoff motif. We'll talk the NBA playoffs. Our friends next door in Atlanta got a big one last night. We'll talk about the Eastern Western Conference as it stands right now. Coming up next here on Overtime. Did not mean our friends. I mean Rose friends. I think it was just me moving around.